Welcome back to the show and welcome to my study. It's so nice and relaxing in here with a warm fire behind me. And I wanted to talk a little bit about answering Bill Brenza's question in the fantastic television show This Week in Montgomery County, which I've always said is the greatest show on television. It's on every Wednesday at 12 noon, and you can see replays of it the entire week after it plays. And, the question is the Republican Party still relevant in Montgomery County? Well, I want to just give you a little hypothetical situation to start answering that question. Let's suppose you had a meeting of the Republican Party's County Executive Committee with all of the elected precinct chairs. And the lady, and I forgot what her last name is, but her first name is Amy, who's the chairwoman of the Montgomery County Democratic Party, came in and had a big giant poster sign, and she put it on display at the meeting of the Republican Party. Well, the question then is, would it be wrong for a Republican Party official to take that poster and move it to a different location, since it's not appropriate to have a Democrat sign in the middle of a Republican meeting? Well, a very similar thing actually happened at the Montgomery County Republican Party's County Executive Committee meeting a few weeks ago, when two ladies by the name of Nita Henry and Ginger Russell are being alleged to have moved a sign of the Republican Voters of Texas. Now you ask, what's wrong with a Republican Voters of Texas sign? Well, it turns out that that's just a political action committee. They're a very private organization. They're not open to membership to the entire public. And in fact, what they do is they try to confuse voters by handing out voter guides at the polls in contested Republican primary elections. And what they do is they basically say, would you like a Republican voter guide? When in fact, what it really is a voter guide that pits one Republican against other Republicans. And so because the Montgomery County Republican Party back in March of this year passed a very firm resolution that made it clear that the Republican Voters of Texas PAC does not represent the Republican Party, is not part of the Montgomery County Republican Party, and in fact that they condemn them for being so misleading and really fraudulent in their dealings with the public. Because of that, these two ladies are alleged, at least, to have removed a sign that the Republican Voters of Texas PAC put at a county executive committee meeting. Well, in response, and what you can see in one of the pictures that's on your screen, is you can see that a county government employee then took that sign, crushed it, and threw it away in the garbage. Now, in response, the Republican Voters of Texas PAC is doing what? They are filing criminal charges, believe it or not, against Ginger Russell and Nita Henry because those two ladies actually did the right thing. Now, in response to that, the steering committee of the Republican Party, under the leadership of Brian Christ, who is the county Republican chairman, are now going after both Ginger Russell and Nita Henry, and they're even threatening them with a little trial. And I don't know how you do a trial in a Republican Party meeting, but they're even calling it a trial is what they're going to be doing. So basically, it's a witch hunt against Ginger Russell, who is a very effective and persuasive advocate for education reform within the Republican Party and has been a conservative Republican leader for a long time, and Nita Henry, who's one of the precinct chairs. So last night in Conroe, there was a meeting of the steering committee, and basically all it was one speaker after the next did nothing but trash Ginger and Nita for the great work that they do. And what was so disappointing, and kind of what made me even think of Nazi Germany or the Salem witch trials, was that there were certain people who just sat silently in the meeting, didn't come to the defense of either Ginger or Nita, did nothing but just sit there mute and allow this travesty to go forward. And the reality is that by sitting there silently, They were harming the Republican Party. What they're doing is they're making the Republican brand, at least in this community, a joke, because they're not standing up for their own resolution, which they passed in March and then reiterated, by the way, about 3 weeks ago, and made it very clear what the policy of the Republican Party is. That this organization cannot have signage in a meeting of the Republican Party because it's not a Republican organization. It's that simple. It is shameful that people actually sat by and allowed that happen in a Republican Party steering committee meeting. And the reality is that those people who sat silently while the Republican voters of Texas crowd went after Ginger Russell and Nita Henry last night, they're the people who are making the Republican Party irrelevant. We're going to take a